Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light from my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we will bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria's energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we will analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business. Welcome and good evening. My name is Wisdom Chap Jumbo. This is the Energy Outlook. We're back again with another very interesting topic this week. As you know, every week on the program, our topics are focused on the energy sector and how to, bring at the top of your mind, what is it that is happening differently, and how do we bring the experts into our studios to discuss and share insights with us on how we can make things better. This week, we'll take a journey to Nigeria's power crisis or power issues. They have been persistent, and just in 2023, we had an act or a law that was signed, into law by President Tinubu, which is called the Electricity Act of 2023, which is supposed to decentralize, the market and create or allow the state to generate, transmit, and distribute power at their different locations. But what has changed since then? The move from federal to state control of the regulatory market was supposed to enable states to be able to develop their own market at the state level and integrate other energy sources like renewable energy into the energy mix. Some have said that this is the game changer for the sector. But fast forward to 2025, a lot is happening and many are questioning, maybe we should have had the one centralized way to manage power in the country. What has changed? What is the issue really? A lot to discuss today to unpack with this topic. But there are challenges that have emerged just recently, that maybe have made stakeholders and some experts to begin to think. But is it possible that we can go back to a more centralized approach? Where are the bottlenecks that we can fix to make this be the change that we wanted? This is our topic today. We're discussing rethinking the Electricity Act of 2023 and try to find really what are the challenges, where are the solutions, where are the opportunities for the future. We'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, as usual, we'll bring you up to speed with what's trending within the sector, and then we'll tell you more about the topic when we're back. My guest is in the studio. I can't wait for me to get into this conversation. So join us shortly.
Life is made up of moments, some that fill us with joy, others that test our strength. Welcome to Heartlines. This is our space to explore the highs and lows of human connection, the love, the heartbreak, and resilience that shapes our life. From relationships to friendships, parenting to partnerships, and so much more. Every week, we share stories and conversations that define us, navigating love, separations, the struggles of parenting, dealing with anxiety and managing the pressures and stress of life. Real conversations that bring us closer, helping us heal, grow, and connect. So join me Mondays through Fridays at 10 p.m. for Heartlines, the show where we connect hearts, have real conversations with real people, one story at a time.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with me. So, what's trending? Let's bring you up to speed on your energy stories. Our first story is the 17th edition of PSRG Richardson HSSE is set to hold to map the future of Nigeria's energy hub. The 17th edition of the HSSE Forum, which is set to take place September 16th and 17th, 2025, will map the future of Nigeria's energy sector. According to the organizers, the forum will hold at the Eco Hotel and Suites, Victoria Island, themed Nigerians, the Gulf of Guinea Energy Hub, mapping the pathway, and will bring together leading voices in the energy sector, academia, government, and technology to discuss safety, sustainability, and energy development in the region. I have attended this event, I think twice, and usually what is discussed here is around safety within the energy sector. As you know, the sector is indeed safety driven. So how do we optimize and bring to bear a lot of the safety innovations that we can imbibe within the energy sector? So it's quite an interesting one that is happening. So we have to bring that in our stories today. So in case you have the time, you can attend. And of course, there's so much to learn. Our second story is marketers continue imports as Dangote Petrol arrives US. So the Dangote Petroleum Refinery last week made its first petroleum motor spirit shipment to the United States, while local marketers insist on fuel importation. This confirmed earlier reports that the refinery is exporting more fuels from the shutdown of some foreign refineries for maintenance. According to S&P Global, 3,000 barrels of petrol left Nigeria August 26th with an expected arrival at New York and New Jersey in the United States on September the 12th. This is even as fuel marketers in Nigeria still import more petrol into the country, ignoring 650,000 barrel per day refinery in Lekki, Lagos, which is a Dangote refinery. This is happening because many have said Dangote wants to monopolize the market. So because of that, some marketers have continued to insist that because to avoid monopoly of the market, they will continue to import. But the big question is, what does the PIA say in this regard? We enact laws in Nigeria, but implementation is always our biggest challenge. What does the PIA say? If we have local refineries who can, meet our, consumption as a country, why do we still need to import? That's the big question I want to leave with everyone in your mind today. I hope we can be able to answer that one of these days. When we have people from Dangote come to speak to us and they say, look, it's not monopoly, and they've tried to analyze all of this. We'll keep following the stories and see. But it's good forex for us to see that we're exporting now. After many years of importing, all our life we've imported, now we are exporting. I think it's some good news and a bit of fresh air. Our next story, report any disco asking you to buy transformers. NEC tells consumers, this is on the Vanguard newspaper. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NEC, has urged electricity consumers in Anambra State to report any requests by officials of Enugu Electricity Distribution Company for the purchase of transformers, cables, or poles. Speaking during a town hall meeting in Awka, NEC Commissioner for Stakeholder Management, Hajia Aisha Mohammed, represented by Head of Consumer Protection, emphasized that such items are investments of the distribution companies and not the responsibility of consumers. She said reports of such incidents should be documented and forwarded to NEC for prompt action. My word to NEC on this is that it should not just be Anambra. I think it should be, the entire country. There needs to be a firm policy on this by the regulator to ensure that consumers are not buying what should be an asset to the discos. And they should channel their investment into those areas. But I'm sure the discos listening to me will be like, oh, but they have their own part to say on this. But we shouldn't be paying for all of this if they're investments for the discos. All right. Our next story. NEC proposes rules to enable solar users sell excess power to the grid. This story is on The Guardian. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NEC, again, has called on Nigerians to provide views on its draft regulation designed to enable solar power users to sell excess electricity back to the national grid. NEC disclosed this in a statement on Thursday, stating that Nigerian solar energy has grown significantly in recent years. In 2023, Nigeria exported over 4 million solar panels. Nigeria imported over 4 million solar panels valued at more than $200 million. By the year 2025, that value of imported solar panels reached 125.29 billion naira. That's a lot of money. This expansion, NEC said, reflects the increasing adoption of renewable energy, particularly in rural and off-grid areas, driven by government initiative and private sector investment. Wow, I'm happy to see this news on the numbers of adoption of solar and renewable energy sources in the country. Let the public please make their contribution to this bill. In other Senate climes, what happens is private individuals can sell excess power to their grid. I think it will do a lot of good to improve our power situation in the country. And we hope that these conversations that will be happening, especially at the National Assembly, will see a wide contribution by the public. And I'm sure we will do that. Okay, before we get to our conversation, our last story, solar cooling startup Coolbox raises $11 million to expand across Africa. Coolbox, a solar and finance-based clean tech startup that builds solar power freezers to sell to businesses, has raised $11 million in Series A funding to expand its cooling as a service business across Africa and establish its first local assembly plant in Nigeria. The Series A was co-led by Quasifa Ventures, Aura Capital, and Allon. The later two being returning investors from Coolbox 2022 seed round. I know Coolbox. Quite done a few work with them, and really they are expanding the market, and congratulations to them on this new funding they've secured, to expand across Africa. And the good thing from this story, which is why I brought it up, is that we're going to have the first established local assembly for cooling as a service. They're going to put that factory in Nigeria. That will do us a lot of good. We've had solar panel manufacturers in the country. We've also had solar home system manufacturers in the country. Now we're having this, solar-powered freezers that will be, manufactured or assembled in the country. It's us growing as a people on what we can do with renewable energy. I think it's a plus for us. Congratulations to Coolbox. Maybe we'll get the CEO of Coolbox in the studio to tell us more about what's happening with this deal and what should Nigerians expect. All right, interesting. That's what is trending, and that's what we want to bring you up to speed. We'll now take just a short break, and when we come back, we'll get into our conversation for today, and I hope you want to grab your popcorn and sit down and listen closely. Our conversation today really may benefit you to understand what's happening within the Nigerian power sector. We'll be back. Welcome back, and this is still the Energy Outlook Live. We're talking to you from Lagos, Nigeria. We're discussing Rethinking the Electricity Act of 2023. How did this start? Sometime in 2010, a few governors wrote to the president, then Goodluck Jonathan, to say, can you give us the power to make or create our own market in our state so that we can have control of how we solve our power issues? That conversation in 2010 metamorphosed gradually as experts begin to think on the possibility of decentralizing what we now have as the Electricity Act of 2023. Those conversations, especially with experts to solve Nigerian power problem, bettered that legislation that was passed in 2023. Many said it was the game changer for the sector. But what has happened in recent times is making us to rethink. Did we do the right thing, or should we go back first to what it used to be? My guest today in the studio to help us, analyze and give us more insight in this conversation is Mr. Audio Omofoma. He is CEO of New Hemisphere Capital Limited. Mr. Audio, welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Wisdom, for having me.
I'm very happy. I mean, we've been trying to talk about having you in the studio, and I'm very excited that we could get you this week. But these conversations have become very critical, and I mean, you are one I respect your views a lot, so we're looking forward to hear from you. But first, let me just ask you: solar panel or solar usage in the country has increased. You can look at what the numbers are looking at now. What are your thoughts about it? Are you excited that we're shifting to renewable energy?
Well, I'm actually excited from the perspective that we no longer have to depend on discos or the national grid for power.
Okay.
My home, I run most times off grid. I have inverters. I have a 30 kilowatt hour storage battery. I'm thinking of even doubling it. So regardless of what's going on in the national grid or in the local grid,
you're not affected.
I'm not affected. So it's a plus, but it's also a sign that the Nigerian power sector, this whole conversation about the Electricity Act, we need to quickly button it down because people are tired. Nobody wants to know about the national grid. This whole conversation about whether we should remain in a centralized market is about the national grid and who is able to control the national grid. A lot of people have left the national grid, so it's a very mute.
People don't care if the grid is on.
They don't care anymore again. In fact, the whole of Dangote, the whole of Lekki Free Trade Zone, they're not on the national grid. Eco Atlantic is not. Well, I think they may have gotten. Well, I don't think they're on the national grid. A lot of entities are not on the national grid. So you kind of struggle to understand why there's this rush to amend the Electricity Act to go back to a centralized system when people have actually decentralized on their own. But that's my thought on it. It's a game changer for consumers, and at the same time, it's a risk for the entire Nigerian power sector.
A risk? How do you mean a risk?
If I'm not consuming from the sector, that means you have stranded generation. You would have stranded transmission capacity. You'd have stranded distribution capacity. Somebody has to bear that cost. So if we all exit the grid, well, if even 10% of people exit the grid, or even reduce their demand on the grid, you would see the problem. I mean, liquidity, stranded power, stranded
issues
costs.
with investment, future investment into the space. Okay, but first of all, let me take you back a bit. I mean, when we're talking about the act itself, the Electricity Act, everybody was excited. Now the state can generate, transmit, and distribute. What happened to that whole excitement suddenly? They said it was going to be a game changer. What has changed?
Well, let me just say, a lot of people are excited. The states are excited.
Okay.
Maybe a few people are not excited. But let me just say this. The ability of states to create the electricity market wasn't granted by the Electricity Act. It's a constitutional matter. Electricity is a constitutional, is in the second schedule of the Constitution. So it's a shared responsibility between the federal government and the state governments.
Okay.
And the Constitution is very explicit in the roles or the laws and the segments that the laws of the federal government should cover.
Okay.
It is also very explicit on the segments of the power sector that the laws of the state should cover. And it's always been there. Some people, I hear some lawyers say electricity has been on the exclusive list. It's never been on the exclusive list. It's always been concurrent. But there was a need for an amendment of the Constitution to make it fully concurrent.
Yeah. Which happened under Muhammadu Buhari.
Yeah, so that's where the fifth amendment, the fifth alteration of the Constitution happened. And let me just say what was altered. Just one simple word was removed. Not. So in other words, the previous constitutional draft restricted states or seemingly restricted states to areas not covered by the national grid within their territories. The fifth alteration has removed that restriction. So states can make laws, state houses of assemblies can make law for generation, transmission and distribution, and every other part, electricity activity within the state
Can do.
within the state boundaries without any restriction,
Okay.
right? The federal government can make laws for generation and transmission, not distribution within a state.
Okay.
The only aspect the federal government can make a law concerning distribution is on cross-border distribution.
Yes. When it's crossing different states.
No, when it's crossing Nigeria, maybe
Oh, okay.
border towns.
Okay.
And then we sort of interpreted it to say, okay, maybe interstate. But it doesn't really say interstate.
Okay.
We've just extended it to say interstate. But really, within the Federation of Nigeria, if we were to look at the constitution itself, the laws of the National Assembly should not really cover electricity distribution.
Well, many said when the states can now generate, transmit, and distribute, and when they have the control, our power issues will be solved. So it means different states can now, take charge by themselves, and we'll begin to see changes, in our power issues. Because of that law now, I think about 15 states have created their markets and be able to take full control from NEC. But it seems not to be solving the problem, is it?
So fantastic question, and this is one of the issues of NEC has existed for 20 years. We had all these challenges, and states are just getting in. We want immediate magic. These things take time, right? Funny enough, some states are just about implementing their markets.
Yes.
And implementing their market means they have to set up their regulatory structures and other policy framework, and then start to operationalize their law. We have dealt with we've dealt with a centralized market such that it's now hard for states are now finding it very difficult to accept themselves because the existing players know NEC, know the Ministry of Power. So they really don't.
They're getting used to the states.
They're actually trying to understand what exactly are you coming to do in our market.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, their biggest investors are states. Because if you look at the biggest investors in terms of people who buy transformers, build feeders, improve distribution,
they're
they're state governments and local governments and all the other part, So it's just to answer your question, it's a gradual process.
Okay.
The regulators have to settle, they have to start to come up with regulations that would improve. Now, that is not to say that it's supposed to distort the entire market, because whether we like it or not, the discos as we know it will remain the dominant players, the dominant distribution players in each state electricity market.
Okay.
If I gave you a license now to go and say distribute electricity in the Lekki area, it will take you time now.
Yeah.
At least 2 years to even start to build a feeder, because you then have to go source for your generation.
Those infrastructures
Okay.
are not joke at all.
It's going to take a while.
Yes.
But one of the things that I know will start to improve is as there's a lot of regulatory collaboration between NERC and state regulators, quality of service will improve. For instance, we have all this band A, band B. We are trying to determine the service quality of the schools. States are better of doing it. State regulators are better of doing it. They are closest to the
people, to the grassroots.
To the grassroots. In fact, they live in the area. So they can regulate these things better than NERC sitting somewhere in Abuja. I mean, you just talked about, your report talked about NERC saying customers in Anambra should not buy transformers. They should come and report. Okay, if you report to NERC, what happens next? What happens next?
I think Anambra has not created their market, so NEC is still in control.
I'm just saying, assuming we are decentralized, which we had operated for 20 years prior to now. I mean, and half the country or 3/4 of the country is still under NEC regulations. So the question to ask is, we actually need collaboration between NERC and the state regulators to start to improve quality of service. Then as new licensees come in, you would see improvement. In its quality of service, because that would infuse competition. Okay. Right?
Okay. When we were drafting or creating this law, did we not foresee what could be a possible challenge? Because what we have now, with about 15 states creating their market, is we have a commercial issue. So, I mean, there's a commercial issue coming up. Like, we see what's happening with Enugu, for example.
So I know you're headed there, so I really wanted to preempt you to get there. See, what's happening in Enugu has no commercial, it's not a commercial issue.
Okay.
Right? Let's be clear. NERC regulates the wholesale market, consisting of generation and transmission. Enugu, state regulator, regulates the distribution side. Now, if you look at tariff, end user tariff that you pay,
Yeah.
it's input in, output, and then they give you output. What are the inputs? Cost of generation, cost of transmission, and ancillary services, and then the distribution cost. Three broad costs. Let's leave out the regulatory cost. Three broad costs. Now, the first cost, generation cost. Who regulates that tariff? Is NERC.
Okay.
The second cost, transmission and ancillary services. Who regulates that cost? Is NERC.
Okay.
The only cost that Enugu state regulator has regulated is the distribution cost,
Okay.
which speaks to the regulated asset base of main power, which is the subco in Enugu,
Yeah.
speaks to the amount of investment, actual investment that will be made, and then speaks to service improvement, and then the OPEX side. That's the only thing that the state regulator has regulated. And what the state regulator has done is to take all the assumptions, which Enugu Disco covers 5 states.
Yes.
That same 5 states, you cannot hive out Enugu State and say Enugu States do something else. Even at that, there are mechanisms to even structure that, which wasn't done. So we don't have there's no commercial issue. What has happened is a lack of, how do I put it now? What has happened is people need to understand the process, particularly the present stakeholders.
Exactly.
Right? Enugu regulator didn't wake up one day and pull out the numbers.
Because I
The
believe
numbers
they must have done their
interactions,
yes,
right?
Yes.
In any case, it's not a big issue because the initial controversy arose because what these conversations, these challenges that states preempted 1 year ago.
Oh, this was preempted already.
Oh, of course now, because clearly you would have interactions.
Okay.
States preempted this conversation and states were pushing for conversations with NERC and the minister.
Okay.
We didn't have these interactions. So if there were these interactions to anticipate these problems, it would have this wouldn't have happened. But in any case, it has happened and it has forced the conversations to the point where we are now seeing better synergy. So it's the Enugu issue is fantastic because now it has now brought to the fore all the things that people didn't think could happen. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
So the minister summoned everybody, the states, and well, he didn't summon, he requested for a meeting. Let me stop using the word summon. He requested for a meeting,
Okay.
and states obliged him, states commissioners, and they obliged him, and just to understand what had happened in the Enugu incident. NEC was even there.
Okay.
There were pressmen there. By the time Enugu State started to explain, the minister had to tell the press guys to leave. Because he was actually going to, whatever was coming out from them, in terms of how they worked through their process, was going to be embarrassing to the federal government. Because very clearly, Enugu had done the work to determine that band-aid tariffs should be less. Right? So we expect that a lot of states, when they set up their regulatory structures, they will do the work as well.
They'll do the work.
By the way, Enugu State is not the first state to issue tariff orders. Ondo State has issued tariff orders. Ekiti has issued tariff orders.
Did this come after Enugu or before Enugu?
Well before Enugu.
So reducing
Well
the,
before, and they did not reduce tariff. They just kept the MITO tariff.
Okay. Well, reducing the tariff now, why many call it a commercial issue? The worry is how would they meet up their obligation to pay when they reduce the tariff?
Meet up the obligation to pay who? Who's meeting up his obligation? Is it Enugu Disco, the Holco, or Main Power, the entity licensed and regulated by Enugu State? Keep in mind, Enugu State did not wake up and say you will set your tariff. It's, remember, input in and then the output. There was input now. So that input determined that they had enough revenue to make. So let me give very clear examples. Main Power, they claimed they had over 2,000 lifeline customers. Lifeline customers pay 4 naira per kilowatt hour.
So they're active customers.
Well, you have lifeline customers on band A feeders.
Okay.
That's not possible. One of those lifeline customers was a former Rear Admiral and Chief of Naval Staff. He's a lifeline customer. How's that possible? Enugu's Main Power claimed they made investments in setting infrastructure. All right, go show us the infrastructure.
None.
They say they have XYZ number of band A feeders. show us the number of hours, So by the time you start to look at the distribution capex and opex, you would already find out that if certain things are done well, then you should be landing at this. Remember, it's input in, and then you get the tariff. But one of the things, so that we don't dwell too much on
Yes,
Enugu,
yes.
is that there's now going to be a public hearing. That's why I'm very excited that a conversation has happened, because there's a process of challenging a regulatory decision.
Okay.
It is we're not in the wild west.
Of course.
So they're going to there's going to be a public hearing. People will, and then at the end of the day, whatever is decided is a tariff. Okay. But I'm glad that a process has now been established.
This will now be a template probably for other states.
Thank you. So it's fantastic. But
okay.
To say nobody anticipated it, states anticipated it. It's just that for some reason, the entities on the federal government side were too slow to also understand it. But one more thing on the Enugu side. It's going to happen because of two distortions. First is the issue of, in fact, the main distortion is subsidy on wholesale.
Yes.
That's a distortion.
So should we keep subsidy or should we remove it?
It's the federal government to decide, because the subsidy is on wholesale.
Yes.
However, if a state says, I want to take next input, next wholesale generation cost, it shouldn't be, the subco should not be buying power from, say, main power is buying power from Enugu Disco.
Yes.
Why can't main power enter into a direct agreement with Embed?
With Embed, so they can get the power directly.
Or with any Genco, so that the price, if you say the price is 120.
Was this not factioned into the act, that the possibility that the subco...
You don't need an act, it's a regulatory thing.
Okay.
We're making regulatory orders. Now we're not trying to write into law what could be a regulatory order. And that's what the amendment is trying to do. I'll speak to that later.
Oh, yeah. Next one, we're coming to the amendment.
The point is, if you're a licensee, you're supposed to buy power. Where is the contract that you bought power from? Who did you buy power from, and how much?
Okay.
Main power doesn't have that contract. They're just
Enugu Disco has it.
They have it with Embed, but
Okay.
Enugu State does not regulate Enugu Disco. They regulate main power. So for you to now say, look, Enugu State will pay subsidy. No, they don't need to pay subsidy. Tell main power, allow Embed and main power to strike a deal on how much they will
So that
pay.
we cut off...
So that this is the price. It's maybe 100 naira per kilowatt hour. This is what main power will pay Embed.
Okay.
Not say they would, or even if he decides to buy the power from Enugu Disco, there is a transfer pricing now. It's very clear, it's a contract. It's not Embed gave us this forbearance, so we can't pass it on to you guys. No, you pass it because that's the whole cost that you're supposed to pay.
So when the subco can go directly, to buy from Embed, our life is made easier.
It's now more transparent.
Transparent, okay.
Yes, and then that cost actually goes to the generators.
Okay.
Not through a holding company that decides whether it will upflow it or keep it.
Okay, before we come to what is going to happen as the amendment, I wanted to ask again, what were the other issues we preempted? I mean, I know you were very involved in all of this at the time. What were the other issues that we foresaw that could happen? That probably we are still waiting now, and that could be another issue.
So we preempted policy harmonization.
Okay.
And I remember more than a year ago, the Nigerian Governors Forum, Secretariat, States, we had a meeting with the minister where we told the minister to set up a steering committee to start to look at the implementation issues in the Electricity Act. This was February or March of 2024.
Okay.
We've also had the same conversations with NEC to say, okay, let's start to really look at the core issues.
Because NGF and NEC needs to be working...
Not even NGF and NEC.
Okay.
NGF and the minister, it's a concurrent matter.
Okay.
So the point is, if some of these committees had been set up, right, a number of and frank discussions held, you would have built the collaboration. I'm not saying there's no collaboration now.
Okay. Should have started earlier.
It should have started much earlier.
Much earlier. Okay.
You would have seen all of this. And quite frankly, those are the things that people have looked at to say, maybe we didn't look at the Electricity Act, and they are now trying to, and that amendment is now trying to create to my mind, an even worse necessity for all of us, right? But yes, a number of these issues were anticipated. It is just that there was no real we didn't get that early movement to try and resolve some of those things on time.
Okay. All right. We'll go on a quick break just to have a breather. And when we come back, we'll go into the next segment where we'll discuss some of the amendment to the Act that seems to be suggested by many experts and probably will be happening as the National Assembly is looking at how can they review the Act. And it's just 2 years. And we are back to review the Act. Why is that so? We'll go on a quick break. My guest, Mr. Odion, is still here. And then we'll get to that conversation. Stay with me.
Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population and with little or no meaningful engagement lives a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say.
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is still the Energy Outlook Live, and we've been discussing rethinking the Electricity Act of 2023. And my guest is Mr. Odion Omofoma, who is the MD and CEO of New Hemisphere Capital Limited. So back to the conversation, Mr. Odion. Now, we're heading to the National Assembly for amendment of the Act. You mentioned that some changes have come up to be included in it. One of it, which I've heard, is many are saying, let's go back to the centralized approach we used to have before. What do you think?
Okay, first things first, there's no perfect law.
Yes.
Every law is subject to amendment.
Yes.
That's the first one. The second one is the Electricity Act is a legislation of the National Assembly.
Yes.
So to some extent, states really do not have an opinion on it.
Okay.
Because we run a federalized system or a federation system.
Yes.
But that's now that's where the issue now is, because in making the federal laws, you now have a situation whereby the National Assembly is now encroaching on state matters.
Okay.
We have 3 tiers of government.
Yes.
Right. Have the federal government, state government, local governments.
Yes.
Everybody, they have their own legislative arms.
Yes.
And the Constitution empowers
Correct.
them to make laws or edicts or whatever.
Correct.
The federal government, the National Assembly makes laws for the federal government, and the federation, where it needs to.
Okay. Okay.
State houses of assembly make laws
for the
state and their local
For the local
councillors,
government.
But the Constitution spells out areas of boundary areas where your law should not encroach into the next person's own jurisdiction.
Yes.
And electricity is one of such issues. So you now have a situation where, first of all, the amendment, I think it's too early.
Okay, because just 2 years.
It's 2 years where states are just about starting their
About only
implementation.
15 states have. We still have
But all of a
quite lot
sudden, the National Assembly, in its wisdom, feels it needs to be amended. We can't blame them. Again, they have the powers to amend.
Yeah.
But the question is, what are you trying to amend, and why the amendment? The why is that they don't want to create conflict between the federal regulators, the federal regulatory structure and state regulatory structure. They want clarity because they say the Electricity Act doesn't provide that clarity. All right, how are you planning to amend it? There are 28 sections in the amendment bill.
Okay.
Right? And the proposed amendments, a lot of them, or the core ones, sections 2 and then sections 230, are clearly ultra-vires. In other words, they are literally beyond the powers of the National Assembly to make.
Okay.
So let me give you an example. Sections 2 says, okay, state houses of assembly can make laws covering their market with a proviso that their laws should not cover national wholesale electricity market. That's fine.
Yes. Yes.
There are two provisos. The third one is their laws should not cover consumer protection, tariff, enforcement of technical standards in their markets.
Okay.
And the first question to ask is that constitutional? No, that's not constitutional.
They don't want them to legislate on tariff.
Consumer protection. So this whole where next is report the schools where you're buying transformers.
But the state cannot be serving me, and I have to report my issue to federal.
Well, you can't be under a state electricity market and consumer protection is now under a federal government. There's no such exclusivity there. That's the first thing. Perhaps there is. I would expect the lawyers to guide me. So let me not be so definitive.
Okay.
Then, but if you go to section 230, the new section 230 they've thrown in, that is where I think the biggest challenges are. Because first of all, they've introduced a new section where they've made NEC like the decider whether a state should transition or not. They're giving NEC that power to say, okay, NEC will decide whether a state should transition or not. Number two, they've given all the states a 12-month deadline to transition, failing which the NEC could take certain remedial actions, failing which...
When you say transition now...
To state electricity markets.
Okay.
But that's on one side. So the question to ask is...
I think states should be allowed at their pace.
Thank you.
So that we don't go into a chaotic...
Thank you. So they put that first of all.
Okay.
Then they now say, okay, sections 230C1. They now try to redefine what states can actually legislate on by indirectly redefining state electricity markets to mean states only have exclusivity over areas, over generation, transmission, distribution, renewable, and not connected to the national grid. Guess what? That was the fifth alteration.
That was what we corrected.
That's what we corrected. So they brought it back in the back door to say, no, anything that is reliant on the national grid, NEC has overriding authority. But think about it. What is anything that is reliant? The only things, there are three segments in this market.
Yes.
Generation, transmission,
and
distribution.
Yes.
So generation, transmission on the national grid is for NEC, wholesale electricity market. So when you now use very interesting language to say intrastate electricity operations reliant on the national grid, what does that tell you? You should have just simply said distribution. But they can't use that word. So there's a very interesting play to make it very vague. So you are saying you want to make sure there's clarity, there's no conflict. You've put in language that is
that will make it even more difficult for us.
That is very vague and will create conflict. Because there's nowhere, the regulation is very explicit. It uses generation, transmission, distribution. You have now...
Which is clear enough.
It's clear enough. You have now come to define, you've left all that. You now said intrastate electricity operations. What's that? What's
I'm trying
that?
to think in my mind that...
If it's not generation that is on the national grid, if it's not transmission that is on the national grid, so which other intrastate...
So could it be that the lawmakers are not engaging enough, maybe to understand? What is happening?
What is happening is that a few people have been uncomfortable with this process. Rather than actually engage, they've gone ahead to draft a bill that they want to push through. I have no problem because that bill has a lot of landmines that if it goes through, Nessie is dead. I'm not interested in the one that concerns the bigger. Everybody will wear their hat whenever they pass that bill. What I want is allow the state electricity markets breed. If you want to impose subsidy on the federal market, go ahead and do it. It's well within your powers. But allow state electricity markets breed. Recognize the Constitution. Don't make things that are against the Constitution. I mean, everybody in that National Assembly swore to uphold the Constitution. So why would you then put language in a manner that nobody can interpret? Creates confusion. To the extent that you are defining state electricity markets to refer to the Act. Meanwhile, state electricity markets are not a creation of the Act. State electricity markets are a creation of the state houses of assembly. They make the law.
Oh, that's the actual difference.
Yes, they make the law. And the Constitution has given them the boundaries of what the law should cover. So why will you now define in the Federal Act, define a state electricity market as something pursuant to the Electricity
That would be
Act?
chaos, we're saying. But so you said it's, I mean, we all agree it's too early to begin to amend the Act. But how much time do we need to give, and what do we need to see before we know probably we are ready to revisit the Act again and make any form of amendment?
Look, as far as I am concerned, everything that the amendment bill proposes can be done by discussion and activity. For instance, the amendment bill proposes a committee of FER or something like Federation of Electricity Regulators. It was already in the previous act. The previous act did not spell out how it should be. And it's for a reason. You do not legislate a process that Wisdom and we can agree on that this is the path we follow.
A conversation on.
The amendment bill proposes that the minister chair one big committee comprised of everything. I told you 1.5 years ago, we all went to the minister and said, create steering committee.
Okay.
But now, you've now gone to write it in a law. So the question now is, why are we writing things that regulations can solve into law? For instance, it says that NEC will order discos to go and recapitalize. Can NEC not give that order today? Do we need to write it in a law that NEC discos must recapitalize and state governments have 12 months to first of all define their shareholding and then recapitalize their own share? Do we need a law to? Do we need to write that in a law?
It can just be a regulation from NEC.
It's a regulation from NEC. Okay. CBN, I mean, banks have raised over 2 trillion naira today on the back of one regulation by CBN to go and recapitalize. The CBN did not need to change Buffia to say banks must recapitalize to this or CBN must mandate. It just gave CBN the power to make those regulations. So why are we now, what should be regulations or just a conversation, why are we now reducing it to law? That's the part I don't get. Because,
so you don't think this will go through at all?
Look, like I said, the National Assembly has the full prerogative to amend any of its laws.
True.
My own worry is that don't amend the law in a manner that's, one, unconstitutional, and then number two, hinders or creates the very objective you are trying to solve. Don't do that. Electricity is a concurrent matter. At no point, no National Assembly member has called states, or rather the power committee, the Senate Committee on Power. They've never called states to say, what are the issues?
What are the issues?
Can we, let's even
that
understand.
Engagement needs to happen
no engagement
at that level before we are, looking at...
States don't necessarily have a say in their, but at least there should be that engagement. You're making laws for a federation. You're making a federal...
Sorry, those states that have created their markets already...
Forget about the states that have even created that. Let's even have an engagement. Okay, you've asked me what are the issues why we have not seen the game changer effects. I would expect that the Senate Committee would invite states, even before they even sent the law to the House, to the National Assembly. I mean, keep in mind, it was the second reading that they had.
So they've done the first reading.
So things have happened.
Second reading means it moves to the committee and then
things
public
have
hearing.
Happened, and then there were states were not aware of this. So the question to ask is, what is going on? Why is there such a rush to amend an act without even taking into cognizance the views of of subnationals? So that if you are going to amend the act itself, then it's a better act.
Okay, so you're confident that the Electricity Act 2023, the way we have it, will still work for us. We just need to give it more time. Is that your view?
We need to give it more time. Number two, we need to allow states start to feel what they've entered into.
Okay.
The law, the Electricity Act as is, I've told you all the sections.
Yes.
It's not a bad section. It's not a bad law.
Okay.
Right? Again, no perfect law. The Enugu issue was solved simply by conversation, by collaborations and engagements.
Okay.
You do not need a law. You don't need to amend it. States licensees being able to buy power from the national grid is an order from the regulator.
Okay.
You don't need a law to demand that that should happen. Trying to now roll back the fifth alteration of the constitution by saying, by defining state electricity markets as the intrastate electricity operations that are not reliant on the national grid is a big issue. Trying to now make NERC overall boss supreme over state electricity markets, including matters that are constitutionally exclusive to
the
states.
Okay. This issue of
is surprising.
This issue of tariff seems to be politically sensitive. Every time anything tariff comes up, everybody is looking at it. How can we avoid some of the mistakes we've had with tariff at the federal level with the states?
Well, with this, if this amendment bill is passed, you will not avoid it. You'll have deepened it. I don't know if you read it. I think you should read it because I was hoping people will read and then they make comments.
I would love to read.
I've heard a lot of commentary.
I
can share a draft, or you can even ask the Senate committee to send to you so that you have the real version. Okay. I mean, we see a lot of times where people comment on issues they're not too familiar with. I've read a lot of commentary as to, states power should be whittled down. We support the amendment bill. But the people that are saying so, they have not read it. Because if you read it, you'd realize that this question you asked is going to get worse. Remember I said there are landmines in that amendment bill. And like I said, it will affect all of us. So I'm not going to waste my time coming to talk about it.
We'll feel the heat, all of us.
All of us will feel the heat. But here's the thing about tariff. Rural communities being served by mini grids, renewable mini grids, are paying far more than what we are paying.
Yes, I saw that report.
So what does that tell you?
I saw that
That
report
tariff
also.
or affordability is not an issue to the extent you get the service. If rural communities are paying between 300 kilowatts to 650, I heard 650
on
I almost fell off my
mini grids, yes, on
I'm
mini
like,
grids.
These are the poorest of the poor.
And they can pay it because they need it.
I know of a community, they are served by 20 kilowatt mini grid system. There's another community that's a couple of kilometers away. People trek from that community to come and charge their phone. So 20 kilowatt is not what one of these studio lights consume, So people will pay where they see service. What has happened is, so that is on one hand. Then on the other hand, you hear that there's 4 trillion naira of subsidy still building. And you're literally scratching your head. Is it that Band B customers cannot pay at least above the cost of generation? Why? If they get the service, they will pay.
So you think we should remove subsidy completely?
See, the way we've managed subsidy is not sustainable.
Okay.
There are ways that subsidies are built into tariffs. For instance, you have cross subsidies. You have subsidies that are based on consumption. So if you are consuming, say, your consumption in a day, say 20 kilowatt hours, you're subsidized. But once you move to 21, 25, you pay a higher tariff. If you are a large power user, you're consuming so much power, there's a subsidy you pay to, that's cross subsidies. Very targeted at consumption or certain group. The federal government or state government on their own can say, okay, these entities, we also want to subsidize them. But you don't subsidize them through tariff.
Okay.
You subsidize them through other means. Effectively making sure that that revenue recovery, the service provider gets that revenue recovery. Not that you then freeze tariff, the revenue provider doesn't get the revenue requirement to even improve the network. So I feel for discos who have to literally sweat out customers to get money. Forget about the fact that maybe they may not be providing the service and all that, but I also feel for them because if you're not making your revenue requirements, then they're setting your hamstrung. You're every day you're begging from hand to mouth,
Imagine.
You cannot move, you can't plan. So when you say subsidy, if rural dwellers are paying so much, what is can we not design subsidy to
If the service
remove
can
some
be
of us,
available, I mean,
some of us who can pay? I'm on band B, I can pay
I'm
now.
on band A, sir, help me.
I'm on band B, I can pay. I'm
Me, I
actually
can't
begging
pay.
to be on band A.
Me, I
If they
can't
give
pay
me service,
again.
because I know how much I pay for diesel.
Please, me, I can't pay
I know how
again.
much I pay for
My,
diesel.
more than what I spend a month on power, so I mean, I can't pay
Trust
again.
me, if you're on band A, guess what? You're not factoring your diesel cost. Let me give you an example. Lekki, where I live, there was an outage, local outage for 4 days. It didn't affect me factoring your diesel cost. Let me give you an example. Lekki, where I live, there was an outage, local outage for 4 days. It didn't affect me too much. That there will be light. They had turned off their generator. They were in darkness. And I'm looking.
We have to go. Time is fast spent already, but
Yeah.
that's a fine place for us to leave it. But we can go talking about this on and on. I think we need about 2 hours for this conversation. There's a lot to unpack. But